أجمعين. Inshallah, tonight we will continue with Surah Hud in juz number 12. We will finish Surah Hud. We will recite Surah Yusuf and just a bit of Surah Ar-Ra'd. Now, Surah Hud is based around the stories of the prophets. Last night, towards the end, we heard the ayat of Nuh alayhi salam with his people and Nuh's dialogue with his son. And that theme continues with Hud and then Salih, Ibrahim, and we'll hear all of their stories in brief tonight. And then Yusuf alayhi salam's story, which is the king of all stories, which is the favorite surah of many of us. If it's not your favorite surah, it's at least the one surah that moves you, that makes you think, that you feel connected to. We will read the entirety of that, inshallah, tonight. To pick one ayah from Surah Yusuf, ayah number 47. وَقَالَ لِلَّذِي ظَنَّ أَنَّهُ نَاجٍ مِّنْهُ مَذْكُرْنِي عِنْدَ رَبِّكَ فَأَنْسَاهُ الشَّيْطَانُ ذِكْرَ رَبِّهِ فَلَبِثَ فِي السِّجْنِ بِضْعَ سِنِينَ. The context here is that Yusuf alayhi salam is telling two of his fellow prisoners whom he had rightfully interpreted their dream to mean they would be released from their prison, but they would meet different fates later on. He said to the one that he knew would live on, اذكرني عند ربك, that remember me when you go and speak to your Lord, your master. Now here, Rabb, it can mean in the sense of Allah and Rabb as well, but Rabbud Dar in the Arabic language, it can refer to your master, the one, your caretaker. Obviously here it means the minister of Egypt, who is your leader. Make sure you mention me. فَأَنْسَاهُ الشَّيْطَانُ ذِكْرَ رَبِّهِ. Now, why is Yusuf saying, mention me? We have to backtrack a little bit and understand how Yusuf got here. And how this request of Yusuf alayhi salam saying, mention me, which seems to be like, okay, Yusuf just went to prison and that's all he could tell them. He could just say that, help me find a way out. But if you put it in context, you understand how beautiful this ayah is and how insignificant Yusuf's request is compared to his history. And what do I mean by that? See, the one lesson that we learn from Yusuf's story, alayhi salam, is that Yusuf's father, Yaqub alayhi salam, who was a prophet, he taught his child well that everyone around you can change. Everything around you can change. Your circumstances can change. But the only one that won't change is Allah. And this is a hard lesson. It's not easy. You can't just say it and understand it. But imagine the Quran at the beginning of Surah Yusuf's story talks about Yaqub talking about it. وَكَذَلِكَ يُتِمُّ نِعْمَتَهُ عَلَيْكَ. Yusuf alayhi salam, Yaqub is telling his son about how Allah will perfect his blessing upon him. He's linking everything to Allah. Now, at that time, that young Yusuf, who's just a handsome young boy at that time actually, who's known for being very beautiful, loved by his father, he does not know what role that lesson from his father will play. But that's the only thing that keeps Yusuf going through everything. When we talk about having a tough life, if the one person that you could understand and say that person turned away from Allah would be Yusuf, because he had the toughest life. All you know is that your father loves you, that you're praised because you're so beautiful. And then all of a sudden, one day, your brothers are plotting to kill you. But maybe if they killed you, that would have been better. Because if you look at stories and you read people's sentiments, people who have lost a family member, meaning family member was abducted, gone missing, they only wish for one thing. They say, we wish he or she or our kid would have just died. So we wouldn't have to live with the agony and pain of knowing, where's my kid? Is he alive? What happened? Who did it? Where are they right now? If they were dead, at least I would have some closure and understand that, look, it's all over. They died. They're gone. But the fact that they're not dead, the fact that they're alive, that eats at them and it takes a part of their soul every day. And so Yusuf, he loses his father. He doesn't know why. And his brothers take him out to play. They throw him in a well. They don't even kill him. Imagine being thrown in and then you're thinking someone's going to take you out and no one comes. Strangers come and they take you. And by this time you've understood. Now you know well. وَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْهِ, Allah says as well, we reveal to him, we tell Yusuf what happens. Yusuf knows what's happened. He's crushed. But then strangers find him and Yusuf sees a glimmer of hope. And he's like, these are some good strangers. They're going to take care of me. And then they turn around and they sell him as a slave. Again, you trust someone and then they betray you. First your own family, then some good strangers. Then you end up in the house of the minister of Egypt. What are the odds? From random passerbys all the way up there. And you actually are loved. Akrimi mathwa. The Aziz of Misr, the minister, he tells his wife, take good care of this young lad. You're taken in as a family member. And then the person who you think has been the most benevolent to you, they've taken care of you, that same person tries to seduce you, the wife of the minister. And then Yusuf alayhi salam, he's trying to do the right thing. Again, he puts Allah first because that lesson is still there. Put Allah first. He says no. He holds his ground. But guess what? She doubles down and accuses him. So now you're betrayed by the family even that took you in. And at this point, anyone would have cracked because you're like, everything that happens, I make the right decision. I say no to haram and then I'm punished like this. But Yusuf alayhi salam, he's taught that that's not how it works. It's not a transaction with Allah that if I do good, Allah has to repay me with something. Allah could save it for me on the Day of Judgment. But that lesson is there. Not only is he accused, the minister says, the only way to get rid of Yusuf, toss him in prison. Problem solved. And Yusuf finds himself with these two young men. This is where this ayah is from. That's the background. When Yusuf finds them there and they talk to Yusuf, they see he's a righteous, good man, knowledgeable person, well-spoken. They say, hey, we have a dream. They want to speak to him. And when they tell him the dream, instead of Yusuf calculating and seeing how can I make it out of this prison through this, he says, hold on, let me tell you who taught me how to interpret dreams. مِمَّا عَلَّمَنِي رَبِّي. This is my Rabb. And for 8 ayahs onwards, he introduces them to Allah. He forgets about his own problem, like who is Allah and why did I leave the pagan worship? Why am I a muwahid? Why am I someone who only trusts in Allah? Why you should leave it too? Why it's a good idea for you? And he's busy this entire time talking about Allah. Look at the priority of a prophet. Even in the lowest of lows, he's putting Allah first because that lesson has never gone away. He remembers that everyone can change, Allah won't change. And then he counsels, and at the very end, he just kind of sneaks it in there. Hey, by the way, now that you're leaving, and I gave you what I could, just remember to mention me. But Allah says, فَأَنْسَاهُ الشَّيْطَانُ ذِكْرَ رَبِّهِ. What happened is that person who was supposed to live on, Shaitan made him forget the mention of Yusuf to the minister. That's one way to read the verse. Or you can say, فَأَنْسَاهُ الشَّيْطَانُ. Shaitan made him forget the remembrance of his Rabb, meaning all of Yusuf's effort that he put in. Shaitan made him forget that. You could be advised by a prophet. You could be taught by a prophet one-on-one. This isn't a class that you took with 30 people. No, this is one-on-one. You were taught by a prophet in prison. You had all this time. You still forgot the message. But the point being, Yusuf alayhi salam, this what seems to be a request for himself, this is hidden within it, and before it and after it. It's all about putting Allah first. And so even though he forgets, Yusuf doesn't care. He doesn't stop remembering Allah. فَلَبِثَ فِي السِّجْنِ بِضْعَ سِنِينَ. He goes back to doing that. And so as a life lesson, Yusuf alayhi salam was betrayed by anyone and everyone that he came into contact with other than his father. But through all of that, we learn, and that's why Yusuf alayhi salam's story is powerful, because it's not just as a prophet, it's his human side, his emotional side. How does he feel? How does he get betrayed? Just like all of us go through that. And so we learn that when you put Allah first and you remember, anyone can change, Allah won't change. That's what keeps Yusuf's iman strong in the lows. And then when he gets to the highs, obviously he can maintain that. But the problem is when you dip and you get into the lows, if Allah leaves your life, when you get into the high, most people, Allah never comes back into your life. And that's what we learn from Yusuf's story, alayhi salam. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.